Hey everybody, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY and welcome to another episode. On today's episode we are going to be installing a rally style dash in my Classic Mini, so stay tuned. Now, on today's episode, we are going to be installing a rally dash on my Mini. Now, for those of you who don't know, I attempted doing this in the past on my own. I used a piece of MDF. I was going to wrap it in some leather, make it really cool, but I just did not have the skill to really accommodate the curve of the dash rail on the Classic Mini, specifically on the Mark I Minis. So for the time being, I kind of tabled that and I figured I'd approach it at some other point. Well, I found someone who's based in the UK and he makes custom rally dashes for old Minis. All sorts of different styles. Whether you want one of the styles that is like the bigger box style that kind of bumps out, that's only on the left and the right, or maybe you want, a flat dash, which is what I chose. He has a really cool custom jig that he has set up so that he can build these and make these perfectly to spec for your car. I sent him an email and I said, I'm really interested and let's get one made for the car. I told him I wanted something that was a little bit more flush mount, something that didn't pop out, although the original Rally Minis did have that kind of pop out style. I knew what I wanted on my car, so I shared that with him. A few weeks later, he got back to me and said, hey, your stuff is done. Let's get it shipped out to you. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't ship to the US, so I worked with a couple friends of mine, specifically Alex Toon. If you don't know him, he has a YouTube channel. You'll want to check that out. It's pretty cool. He does mini stuff and he has some really cool old Minis. But he helped me, shipped it to him, he shipped it to me, it got here, and now it is time to install it. So before I show you guys how to do this, first thing I want to mention is one, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing with this. I picked this up from the guy who made these custom. He gave me instructions on how to install it, but I've never done this, so there is a chance that I might mess this up. So don't take this as the word of God or anything like that. I don't know if you do that anyway. But let's take a look at what the Mini looks like now so you have a much better picture of what I'm going to. And one other thing, if you guys have any recommendations of things that will make it kind of pop with that rally look, I am installing a map light, this Avanti map light. I'm going to change this out for an LED at some point, but this is going to go on the passenger side because it gives that cool retro look. And then, of course, in the most rally style, I'm going to be installing brand new speakers from the 21st century that will really give it that 1960s pop, I think. For the longest time, I've had these Pioneer speakers, really small, cheap speakers I picked up on Amazon years and years ago, and they've been okay. They haven't been bad, but now I'm going to upgrade to these sweet JBLs, really big driver on the bottom of them. I'm hoping the sound is a little bit more well-rounded on these, and then they come with their sweet own speaker grill. Ooh, fancy, fancy. So let's jump out there and take a look at what we have already, and then we can start tearing it apart. Now you guys should be able to see here pretty easily that I've already started to take out the speaker boxes that lived on the left and the right of my dash previously. But one thing I do want to mention when you're doing this, make sure you disconnect your battery before you start working on any of this stuff, because what's going to end up happening is as you start taking apart this stuff, you're going to have some exposed wires and these can ground themselves out. It can cause shorts, it can cause damage to the battery, to your fuses, to the electrical system. So it's very important that you take the time, go ahead and disconnect those so that you don't cause any damage. Now you can see here I've got a bunch of switches set up on the bottom. These are your stock switches, so you have your headlights right here. You have your windshield wipers here. This is the heater. And then I have two auxiliary switches here and here, one of which turns on my big rally lights on the front of my car, and the other turns on the auxiliary cooling fan that lives underneath my wheel well. So my goal with this is to move all of this stuff up here onto the new Rally Dash platform that's going to be sitting right there. The only thing that's going to be left down here is the choke. I'm actually going to move the key, I think, up here, somewhere up here. So this is going to become an almost completely blanked out plate. I think it's going to look a lot better, and who knows, maybe I can do something cool with that. But up here, We do still need to take off the center binnacle here, and you probably will need to get access to this from the other side from your engine bay. And for this video, I'm actually not going to show that. I've done it in previous videos, but the short of it is if the hole is covered, you uncover the hole on the engine side, take off your cover, and then start unplugging the wires there. But I strongly recommend taking a photograph of the back side of these wires because it's going to make your life so much easier when you replug this back in. This is also a really great time if you have any bulbs that are out or you want to replace the bulbs. You can actually get LED replacement bulbs for the little push-in bulbs here, and then you get a much brighter dash setup, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to continue to take this stuff apart and cue the time lapse. Finally get to show you guys the Rally Dash. So it's a 3-panel system, so you can see here, and the center panel mounts to the bottom of the outer panels to get its position and its shape. But as far as mounting goes, it's going to sit kind of flush underneath the front lip there. Now that's pretty much what it's going to look like there. I do have to do a little bit more positioning and finagling with this before I drill the holes. They drill into this upper rail, and then on the bottom side you have some brackets that kind of go back and down, and they mount to the bottom side of our lip here. And then of course you have a fully complete dash. Now you probably notice I don't have a speaker hole here. I don't have any sort of mounting equipment. Same thing for the other side. And I have been thinking long and hard about how I'm going to do this. And I think the best way, the way that's going to work out, you know, the easiest is I am going to get this positioned up. I'm going to mount it. And then once it's mounted, I'm going to take it back off and I'm going to bring this to a water jet cutting facility. I'm going to have them make perfectly cut circles for 4-inch speakers. And then on that side, I'm going to add a few other things. Hopefully, I'll be able to cover it all in this video. It just kind of depends on how long it takes me to get all that stuff done. All right, so I went to a laser cutter and a water jet cutter, and they both told me that they would probably not be interested in doing this because this has a slight curve to it. So what I'm gonna be using to do this is what's called a nibbler. Now what this does is it has a little thing inside here, and let's bring that a little closer so you can see it there. And when I run the drill, it moves a piston up and down, and that piston is slightly smaller and is actually pinching and chipping off metal and cutting this so that you can cut into sheet aluminum, all sorts of very small sheets of metal much easier. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull up a sheet of steel here and show you how this thing works, and then I'm gonna use this to cut the holes in this dash, hopefully without damaging it. I'm really nervous about this, so wish me luck. You put this on here. And as you can see, it cuts a really small hole in there. It's super loud when you have this big piece of metal hanging in here, but it makes quick work out of cutting. The only drawback is that you end up with a much bigger gouge here. So when I'm cutting this other piece, I'm gonna have to do it in a way that I'm gonna have to measure in a way that accounts for this extra space so I don't cut my holes too big. All right, so to start off, you can see here I have a cutout. This is gonna be for my little radio unit. It's gonna go right in here and it sits right down in. It has a bezel that comes over the edge. First thing I gotta do is drill a hole in that so that I can have a place to start this nibbler. Well, all I can say is that I am glad that the bezels are large on this because that otherwise would have looked like ironed over shit. So thankfully, this next part with the circle has a small guide, and this is going to allow me to cut that circular speaker hole right over here a little bit easier. I'm going to flip this around in the bench vise so we're cutting a little closer to the bench vise and it's not as shaky, but at least this one part is done and my little radio unit should fit in there nicely. Now for this part, I've already drawn some circles here. Basically, I tried to triangulate exactly where it would sit on the panel here. I have another one on my other panel that matches. And so first things first, we've got to drill a hole in the center here, because this is made to prevent your drill head from going any farther than however far the distance is that you measure out here. So you align this sucker on here, you set this down into a hole in the center, and then you drill in a circle all the way around. Now it's a 4-inch speaker, but I measured it and it's just a hair under 4 inches at where it sits down, and then the outer ring sits all the way at 5 inches. So let's get that all set up. I'm gonna drill a hole here and hope for the best. That's a surprisingly good circle, I have to admit. Now, I cut it a little small. Hopefully I don't regret that. Yep. Cut it too small. That's unfortunate because now I have no center post. So I thought for sure that erring on the side of caution would be good in this scenario, but it looks like it actually kind of came back and bit me in the butt because with this being a little too small, I can't get my speaker in here, obviously. I mean, it is so close, but definitely not going in there, which means that I'm gonna have to round out that hole somehow. Well, for right now, I'm gonna set this off to the side. Don't need speakers at the moment. I don't need them bad on this. I don't need them super bad on this. And we can go ahead and cut the holes in this one. And we can go ahead and cut the hole on this one. And this time I'm gonna actually set it to the desired length instead of a little bit smaller. I should have thought of this. I'm just blown away by how well these holes get cut. So let's see if I cut it the right size this time. Thank the Lord, I did. It's actually a little big, which is perfect because this has a little bit of play. I can fiddle with this and find the exact spots that I want to mount these speaker holes. Good news. All right, so speaker holes are cut. I've also got the actual mounting holes cut as well. So this is what it looks like without the speaker in it. And then with, looks like that. Things are really looking and coming together now. So for this weekend, I'm gonna be driving the car, so I want to get this kind of back together for the time being. But eventually I'll be moving all of my switches up underneath here, and I'll drill new holes for those. But let's go ahead and stick this back in the car and start seeing what this looks like. We do also have to install 2 more supporting brackets that mount to the bottom of our dash panel here. So I'm gonna put those on. I'm gonna take the speakers out, put those on, put this back in the car, and then I can mark the holes where I need to drill them. All right, so I know that you guys probably can see with this jump cut that the dash is actually done already. There was a bit of a catastrophe with the footage I had. I recorded it all, thought I had transferred it off of my camera. I filmed a big movie that I have submitted to the International Mini Film Festival for the IMM 60 event that's happening in Bristol. And I deleted the footage of completing this. So I'm really sorry. I'm really embarrassed about that, but as you can see, the dash is done. And in just a second, I'm gonna give you guys a closer look at this. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a close-up of all the stuff that's been installed. But what you can see is that this is mounted with 3 screws on each panel into the actual dash upper rail here. The bottom rail is then mounted with brackets that kind of go in and down, and they mount on the actual partial shelf. And this gets held in really strong. It's awesome, and it has been incredible to have this in my car. It allowed me a really great opportunity to put a bunch of sound deadening in behind this. So behind these panels, I have a butyl, the kind of like adhesive, black adhesive tar type of sound deadening that's on the actual firewall or the bulkhead, and then on the back of these panels as well, so there's no reverberation. It's very quiet. And then obviously I've got my new speakers, my map light, which can pop out, bend out, and it works when the car is on or off. So, and I can have light no matter when I need it. Got my 3 gauges here. I do have future plans, I think, of installing another gauge right here, which will be a clock. I do have that 4th gauge, the one that I was thinking about installing. And then over here, I have an AEM air fuel gauge that hangs down below the dash. I decided that I wanted that separate from the dash because it has a much more modern look. I wanted this to have more of a classic look. Obviously the speakers and my little control unit for my radio here do kind of take away from that. I did mention earlier in this video that I was going to move the switches and other stuff up here as well, but when I removed the auxiliary ones and I put these two up here, everything looked kind of nice the way it was, so I just left it. I left it the way it is, and I think that I'm happy I did that. So let me zoom in here for you and show you guys the Rally Dash in its complete state. All right, so that wraps up this episode of Classic Mini DIY, the Rally Dash episode, or at least part of it. I'm super sorry again, guys, that I lost that footage. It's really, really frustrating. So imagine how frustrated you are and multiply that by 10, because that's how mad I am that I lost those video files. But if you like the way that Rally Dash looks and you want to pick one up yourself, there are links in the description to the guy who makes these. He was really, really nice guy. The turnaround time does take a little while because he does make these custom to order, so it does take him a little bit of time to put that together, get them powder coated, and the finish on them is this like crinkle black, but it is so, so nice. I cannot express to you guys how nice that finish is. And the installation itself is not actually especially difficult. It's time consuming for sure. I would put it in the kind of advanced level installation skill required, because you are drilling holes in metal, things like that. And there are a few tools, specifically a punch, that I would recommend having. This will allow you to create kind of a pilot location to drill holes. And then of course the Nibbler, if you want to cut some specific holes in your dash. That Nibbler is actually not that expensive. It's linked in the description below as well. Now, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to post them in the comment section, and be on the lookout. On July 1st, I have something super exciting that I'm going to share with you guys. So stay tuned, look for that video dropping that morning. So I'll catch you guys then, and until the next time, enjoy those minis and motor on.